go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our brand new podcast show for the love of books, featuring indie and small press authors who bravely navigate the treacherous waters of self-publishing and marketing even during the pandemic. I will be your host, Emma, and we're going to have a great show with an international guest lineup as we move forward to vaccinating the entire globe. This show was made partly possible by the generosity of Doc A.E. Chavent and her support for the arts. It is my pleasure to present to you author Jean Davis of West Michigan. She writes science fiction and fantasy. Davis has authored a total of 8 books, including a space opera series, The Narvan, 2 short story collections, and 3 standalone novels. Davis falls into the category of what I call COVID authors, meaning that she wrote, finished, published, and marketing during the pandemic at full speed, regardless the absence of in-person author events. Welcome, Jean.
Well, thank you.
Jean, tell us about your COVID author experience. Which books were written and published in the pandemic?
Oh my, I had a very busy COVID time. I actually got a lot of writing done because I wasn't out selling books and meeting readers at events. So I actually published Dreams of Stars and Lies came out during COVID, and also the second book and third book of the Narvan. One came out at the very beginning, and then one just came out last month. That came out during COVID, and I've also co-authored a book during COVID. I've written a couple books during COVID, and I'm getting ready to publish another one next month, or this month now. Yes, the end of this month. Yeah.
So how would you compare COVID publishing or during the COVID era to publishing in normal times?
I had a lot more time to just sit down and get some writing and editing and work on covers and all that good stuff that I probably would not have normally had, because I would have been out doing all these events on the weekends and working during the week. And that kind of limits my time to do all that fun stuff that I need to do to get books out. So I got a lot more productivity in with everything being canceled. The one thing I was not able to do, obviously, was go out and do book signings and go to the art festivals and red fairs and craft shows and Comic-Cons like I normally do to get to meet readers and actually more market and sell the books. But they are all available online, so I do have them out there.
They are out there. People will find them. When did you start writing and why?
I started writing as a young child in elementary school, and mostly just worked on little short stories. And actually, one of my very first longer stories, was kind of a novella, was the seed for the first book of the Narvan that I ended up writing in, 1980 something in there. I took some creative writing classes in high school, and then kind of just let it. I wrote, but I wasn't really all that serious about it till my kids were probably finally getting into kindergarten, and I had that time to just sit and do some writing on my own that I didn't have for many years with kids being little. I've always been writing, but I didn't start writing seriously till about 2006. And at that point, I kind of made a pledge that I wanted to publish a book in some way by the time I was 40. I made it by, I think I was 39-ish in there, that I finally started publishing. I did some short stories and then got a contract for my first novel. And then it's all just been going from there. It's been a great train ride so far.
Good. What do you feel sets you apart from other authors?
I like to write a lot of different things. I don't just write science fiction or just fantasy or just paranormal or whatever. I kind of jump around. So I have this space opera series that is kind of more of an involved. So if you like Star Trek and Star Wars and that kind of thing, it's a very involved world with not make your brain hurt sci-fi, but good involved sci-fi. And then I have a sci-fi romance story. I have a fantasy story. I have short story collections. And then I have a dystopian novel. My next one coming out is a comedic fantasy novel. I like to read a lot of different things. So I like to write. I don't want to be stuck in just one specific little niche.
Yeah. What have you learned about yourself while writing your books?
Gosh, about myself. Well, I guess I like to talk to imaginary people a lot more so than real people.
So do you like to talk to imaginary people more than to real people?
I do. Yeah.
Are they easier to talk
They're
to?
easier. Yeah. They don't necessarily listen to me, but I can have more active conversations. So yeah.
Understandable. How have you changed as an author?
I did when I originally started writing. My writing wasn't very good because I was just starting. But I started writing a lot of my earlier stuff was very dialogue heavy, especially my early drafts when I first started writing, because I really focus on the dialogue and not necessarily on the scenes and the setting and then the characters development kind of stuff. And I would have to go in and add all that in later during the many layers of editing. And now I have that in my head that this is a thing I need to work on. And so now I'm able to put out a first draft that has much more of that included than I did originally, because I have the little editing voices in the back of my head of all these different people that have helped me over the years. And oh, this one says I should add this. And oh, yep, I better not forget this.
What platform do you publish on and why?
I kind of dip in all the baskets. So I have done self-publishing. I've published through a small press. And as self-publishing, I have gone through Amazon. I have worked with Smashwords, and I have worked with Ingram Spark. And they all have their benefits. So it just depends on what you're going for. I like Amazon for the fact you can do the Kindle Unlimited program. And some people, if they're in that it's really nice. You can say, hey, I have books in Kindle Unlimited, and maybe they would try you out there while they already are paying for that program. And then if they like your books, they would actually purchase ones that are not on Kindle Unlimited, which is why I like Smashwords, because they're a wider distribution through all the different online things for your ebooks. So I have Dreams of Stars Lies is actually on Smashwords, and then my newest book will also be through there. They are on Amazon, but they are not Kindle Unlimited books. And then my series is all through Ingram Spark, which I actually ended up doing that because my publisher they published the first book through a small press, and they had gone through Ingram. And obviously I didn't want to pull my book from Ingram because it was actually gets more much wider distribution through that than you would through Amazon. And so I've done all the rest of the series books through there.
Okay. And you have also co-authored a book with Ingar Herdholm. How did that work out? I just can't even imagine co-writing anything with anyone.
It was fun. We share a lot of tents at different events and things, and so we've worked together at tables and things. And I helped format when he had to reformat his first book, and I helped him do that. And then I helped him edit the second book. Went over that for him a little bit. So I was very familiar with his first two books. And he wanted to get his third book out because he's a slower writer. Everybody writes at different states, and I'm a very fast writer as far as getting the first draft out. So we had kind of talked. He had read Destiny, Pills, and Space Wizards, one of my short story collections, and it has some stories that's told from a kid's point of view. And he kind of liked those. And he said, well, would you be interested in helping me get the third book out so it doesn't take years for him to get the next book out? For younger adults, and he has a window of age groups that the books are appropriate for, and by the time he was getting the first book out, they were out of the age group by the second time the second book came out. Going. So he asked me to help him write this third book, and he kind of wrote the outline. It's kind of a bare bones of the chapters, and then I went and put a bunch of meat and muscle on them for him and then gave them back to him, and then he kind of rewrote everything in his voice because it needs to match the first two books. So it doesn't sound completely different than the first two in my voice. So he ended up rewriting everything. It's in editing right now, and hopefully that book will be out. The Traveling Circus and the Skeleton Key will be out in May, I believe, is what he's aiming for.
How long did the whole process take from the initial idea to the final product?
He gave me the outline. And I don't remember exactly what month it was, but it probably took me a month and a half going over his stuff. And we kind of went back and forth on different scenes because he was working on stuff and I was working on stuff. And we were sharing a document. And I think there was only one time that we were both working on the same scene accidentally. And so he had to kind of mishmash the best of both worlds there. But it worked out fairly well. I think it took about a month and a half for me to add my stuff and then kind of handed it over to him to do everything he needed to do with it to put it back in his voice.
Wow, that's so interesting. What do you find the easiest and the hardest in the whole process from the initial idea to getting the book in front of the readers?
I draft pretty quickly, so I do National Novel Writing Month. So November is always my writing month, and I always get a rough draft of something out. One year it was short stories that I did. And I think for the most part, I've done a novel every year out of that. And this past year I did 2 novels. So because COVID productivity. Yeah, so I've always been good about just getting a draft out when I set my mind to it, that I'm going to get a draft and do a draft really quickly. As far as what takes me the longest or the hardest is probably the editing of it, because I do my edit, and then I do probably 3 layers of editing, and then I send it out to some of my friends that kind of do developmental editing or critique partners, and have them go over it, and then it comes back to me, and then that process takes a lot longer because I have to weigh what their feedback and what I want to change, and then once we get over that hump, then things go pretty quickly again.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Out of the new book, there are 5 stories in the new book, right? Which one is your favorite and why?
Oh, that's a good question. I have to familiarize myself with which stories on here. I would say probably Sipper was my favorite. I love them all.
Yeah,
asked me to pick one of my children. Sipper was probably my favorite, just because it's a longer story. It's probably my longest short story I've ever written. It's kind of the anchor story for the book, and it was a lot of fun to write. I did a lot of I pounded that story out, and I was really happy with it. And then I sent it off to Stella, who's one of my favorite critique partners, and she read it and she's like, well, you could change this. I had sent it out in submissions actually for a while, but it was kind of on the longer end of what people are looking for short stories. And so she read it, and she made some excellent suggestions, and it really, I think, brought the story around to where I really wanted it to be, that I didn't even know before she read it.
How many words is it, that longest story?
Ooh, I don't know off the top of my head. I would say it's probably somewhere between, I would say maybe 15,000 words.
Oh yeah, that is longer.
That's a longer short story.
That's a longer short story. Yeah, I bet. When do you find the time to write? The favorite question we all get asked. When do you find the time to write?
In the morning is my time to write, where I kind of have that set aside. That could be where I'm actually writing. I could be editing. I could be critiquing something for somebody else or whatever. But I am sitting in front of the computer doing book related things. And then after work, I'll usually try to get in a couple pages of something that also before dinner. And then after dinner, assuming we have nothing going on, I'll usually slink back down here and work on it a little while longer yet, if the mode in my mind is in the right mood for that. But yeah, usually I'm fairly productive during the day. I'd say I probably spend 2 hours in the morning and 2 to 3 hours in the evening, if all goes well.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Wow. Where will people find you in person this year?
Hopefully in a lot of places.
Just name some of them, some of your favorite ones where you get a really good turnout and return customers.
Yeah, I will definitely be doing the Muskegon Lakeshore Art Festival. Hopefully we'll get that again. That's a big author tent. So we have 20 different authors there. That's a lot of fun. We do that one. Hopefully we'll be at Grand Rapids Comic-Con. Please let us have that happen again this year.
Please,
so I'll be, I had a really good time there, not last year because it didn't happen, but the year before, meeting a lot of readers there. Let's see the other big ones I'm doing. Let's see, Get Geeked over in the Lansing area, I believe that one's at. That's another Comic-Con, and we'll be doing PenguinCon. That's a virtual event So not necessarily in-person person, but in Zoom-ish kind of person. I'll be at that Zoom-ish. I'm not sure what platform we're doing that on yet, but yeah, that'll be later on this month. I think it's the 22nd through the 25th. That's pinglecon.org. You can sign up for that. That's all things sci-fi, and so it's and open source software and craft things and all kinds of fun stuff happens at that. When it's in person, it's a lot more fun, but we'll do what we have to do this year.
Well, definitely. Where can people find your books?
My books are all online. They're all on Amazon. Like I said, the newest one and my next one will be on Smashwords, so that one is much more widely available. And then my series is pretty much everywhere that you can find books online. So that was at Barnes and Noble. It's probably it's at the Apple iBooks. It's all the different fun places you can find books. And you can also find them on my website if you want to buy signed paperback copies at jeandavisauthor.com.
What is your favorite or maybe most trending seller format? Is it paperback or Kindle?
I would say people buy paperbacks. When I go out and meet readers and I say, oh, they're also in paperback, or, in ebooks. And they're like, oh, I really like the feel of a book. I like books. Yeah. I mean, I sell both, but people really tend to like the paperback books. I do too. I have some books that I read on Kindle, but I prefer to have them in my hands.
Me too. Exactly. Me too. Tell us about your award for trust. You got an award for trust.
Yes, that was the Author Shout Out Award. And that was kind of fun. I don't normally enter a lot of contests and stuff. It seems like a lot of them are kind of pay to play, and I'm not all about that. I'd rather have readers just find it and enjoy it and post a nice review. But that one happened to be, it was pandemic time, and I'm like, well, I need to get out there somehow, so I'll try a contest. And there were actually a lot of Michigan authors placed in that, so it was really fun to be in a contest with a lot of my peers. It was a lot of fun.
How cool! Would you like to read to us from your Dreams of Stars and Lies?
Yes, so I will read Dreams of Stars and Lies. Yes.
Nice cover. Tell us about the cover.
So this is actually a cover that I did, and the crystal on here is actually from Sipper. It's there. Tia goes to a planet to kind of explore, and there's all these crystal towers on the planet that people lived in, and so she gets to go live in one and find out why they are no longer there. It's a whole mystery, science fiction mystery. Yeah, so that's fun. But this is actually a crystal that I own, that I took a picture of and played with, but it's on a necklace that I wear.
Nice, I like that. Very cool.
So I'm going to read to you from a story called Battery, which is a story I wrote for my local writing group. We kind of had a prompt that we were working on together, and it was a story I brought to one of our meetings to have critiqued, and then I kind of went off on it after that and got it finished up. So Battery starts with a glass wall surrounded Cecilia's narrow bed and the small table with 2 chairs, a pristine quiet square in the midst of the chaos of the warehouse. The white coats were busy today, sipping their coffee and buzzing around between desks and equipment. As always, 2 pairs of eyes watched her. Sitting atop the fluffy white comforter, her legs were crossed on a pillow clutched to her chest. She watched them back. Over the years, she'd watched Raymond's hair turn gray and wrinkles creep up further from Charlotte's eyes. Today, the pink of her lipstick had already feathered into the lines around her lips. When Celia had first arrived here, Charlotte had held her hand, leading her to what Charlotte called the special playroom. The woman had seemed so tall, towering over Celia as she led the way into the room that she still sat in so many years later. The toys were gone, though. They hadn't been pleased with how she'd played with them. No one held her hand anymore either. In fact, no one touched her at all. Everything was passed through a 2-part slot in the door. Raymond and Charlotte spent the morning in their chairs, talking without looking at one another, keeping their eyes on her. Celia watched the other white coats pointing at the screens and passing papers back and forth. They all stayed back, too far for her to hear them. She passed the hours making up conversation, their imagined voices playing out in her head. Dr. Herschel came in the afternoon. His arrival allowed Charlotte and Raymond to take their lunch breaks. The doctor's bent form shuffled closer as he dragged one of the chairs over to the speaker near the sealed slot in her door. He pressed the button and activated the speaker. A faint hum filled her room. "Good afternoon, Celia," he said, as he always did. He settled into the chair, balancing a notepad and pen on his lap. He didn't wait for her to reply. She rarely spoke. "I brought something for you. Are you hungry?" It had been a long time since she'd eaten. Enticed by his offer, she let go of the pillow and swung her legs over the edge of the bed. Celia stood, loose pants settled over her legs, sliding down to her feet. She hovered just above the floor. "Come on, then," he said. Dr. Herschel opened the slot and slid a rectangle through. It landed on the shelf inside the door with a heavy thunk. 2 silver nodes protruded from the top. Her hands tingled with anticipation. Celia willed her body forward, gliding just above the floor she only guessed was smooth. She'd never touched it. Celia willed her body, oh, sorry. I'm hearing noises behind me here and it's distracting. "It's fully charged," he said. He picked up the battery and tried to ignore the hordes of whitecoats she knew were raptly watching behind the safety of the yellow line that surrounded her room. If she weren't half starved, she would have set the meal on the table and made them wait. Her favorite game was to try to catch them being unobservant. That's why they had whitecoats and chairs now, to make sure someone was always watching. She sighed. The only defense she had left was to turn her back to them. Even then, she knew the sensors and cameras were all around her room. They'd still see everything, but somehow it felt like a little victory that they couldn't see it with their own eyes. Celia placed her hands over the cool metal of the nodes, opening her power well. She drew from the battery. The tingle of incoming power invigorated her, but it wasn't enough. She still needed more. She dropped the empty battery back onto the shelf. A scratching sound filtered through the speaker. "Still hungry?" The doctor put his pen down. "If you speak to me, I'll get you another one." The last time she'd spoken, the whitecoats had been horrified by the toys spinning through the air. It had been a wondrous day. The power inside her coalescing into something she finally understood. Something from her deep memories from home. A place far from here. If only she could speak to one of her own kind, she would surely understand her powers better. But the doctor and his team seemed to think she could understand them all on her own. "You can do so much, Celia. Those who found you told us of great miracles done by your people. Don't you want to do glorious things?" There was far more to life than sitting here in a bed all day. There was nothing more for her. The whitecoats made sure of that. "We've been at an impasse for far too long, my dear, and if we don't start making progress, our little endeavor here would be terminated." His cloudy blue eyes drilled into her from the other side of the glass. "Do you understand what I mean?" Celia blinked once, engaging her secondary vision. Inside the doctor, his system moved slowly, the large muscle in his chest pumping at an inadequate rate. Dr. Herschel wouldn't be coming to see her much longer. Not that she would tell him so. His age-spotted hand curled into a fist atop the writing-filled page. "I know you understand me, Celia. You understand everything here. You're a smart girl. We have the scans to prove it. Years of data." The doctor's fist thumped hard on the glass. "What I need are results. And if you want to keep breathing, you're going to provide them. Is that clear enough for you?" And then I'm going to...
Well done. Nice. Very nice and enjoyable. Question. Where do you see the future of the indie experience going? What is the future of indie authors?
It's wide open.
I never asked that question. It just occurred to me.
Just throw it at me, why don't you? No, I mean, it's wide open. There are so many opportunities for authors right now. Well, not right now during COVID, but getting out and just meeting readers at all different places. And there's so many places. Everyone reads. Well, most people read, right?
Most people read.
Yeah, so you could meet authors or meet readers everywhere. It's just getting out and talking about your books, really. Yeah.
Do you think more people will go indie rather than traditional?
I think so. I mean, having worked with a small press, I mean, it was nice as far as getting my first book out and my second book out, but it takes a long time. And some people are impatient. Hi, that's me. I'm impatient. And so while they were taking so long to publish my books, I actually self-published a couple books during that interim time before they published my second one. And really, if you're some of the bigger small presses do a really good job with marketing and promotion, but a lot of them don't. They're focused on their little niche and doing their thing, and so you're doing a lot of marketing on your own anyway. And so be able to indie publish and know what you're doing and get out and do your own marketing, and you get to keep the profits for yourself, which you're the writer. So as long as you can do the work to get the book out, in a quality book, then I think you should go for it.
So what would you recommend to completely newbie authors, indie authors who published their first debut book during the pandemic? How should they get into our circles? Because we were lucky enough to meet in person. Not everybody had that privilege.
Right, definitely look at your Facebook groups in your area, search for, writers groups in your area, author groups, and start networking with them. Look for critique groups, bookstores, libraries, things like that usually have a group. Start networking, see what other authors are doing, talk to the other authors, see what their marketing plans are, what works and what doesn't. I mean, it's different for everybody because everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses and time and money, and it all varies as far as what you can do. But yeah, don't feel like you have to go it alone for sure. There's lots of groups out there to join and to get some experience and ask questions.
How about your parting shots?
Related to that, don't be afraid to talk to the authors. As far as if you're a reader, I mean, we love to talk about books. We're not scary people. We're honestly probably pretty quiet people. So we love when you actually come ask questions. We love to talk about our characters, talk about books, talk about what you like to read, what we like to read. We're just normal people. If you're an author, definitely talk to the other authors. See what they're doing, see what they're writing, pick up their books, see how they're formatted, ask all the questions you want to ask. We're generally very helpful people to each other. We all try to help each other out.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Jean.
And thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.